Much in the mold of movies such as Network, All the King's Men, Spotlight, and The Post comes Maria Schrader's 2022 movie She Said, starring Carey Mulligan and Zoe Catton. Catton, who you most likely recognize from the movie The Big Sick. This movie follows two reporters for the New York Times named Megan Toohey, played by Mulligan, and Jodie Cantor, played by Kazan, as they break the Harvey Weinstein case. So it had been rumored for 30 years that Weinstein had been sexually assaulting, harassing women, and nothing had been done about it. His companies, both Miramax and the Harvey Weinstein Company, had paid off these victims and had them sign non-disclosure agreements so they couldn't speak out on their behalf. Through some serious investigative reporting, due diligence, but more importantly through kindness, through empathy, through patience, through understanding, Toohey and Cantor were able to talk to some of these victims who hadn't signed these agreements, and were able to get them to speak out in public or on the record against Weinstein when previously they had been too scared to about what might happen to them. This was an important movie of the ones that I mentioned at the start of this review. This is the one that I'm going to remember 25 years from now the most, because it's the one that's touched me the most, it's the one that's felt the most relevant, it's the one that has affected those around me more than the stories in the four other movies referenced. I'm going to talk about two other ones really briefly. So Spotlight, which I really liked, and then The Post, which I didn't like. But both of these were based on older cases. So even though they were made more recently, Spotlight I think in 2015 and The Post I think in 2017. The Post was based on 2001 reporting of Catholic priests in Boston who had been molesting children. And The Post was based on the 1971 Pentagon Papers, which were classified documents that talked about the U.S. government's involvement with the Vietnam War over like a 20-year period. So I mentioned both of those, 2001 and then 1971, because we didn't have the ways to hear, to research, to gather information like we do today. So in 2001, in 1971, a lot was relied upon newspapers breaking stories, and All the King's Men with Watergate and everything like that. Newspapers still have that credibility, and that's what helps us define fact from fiction when we are looking at some of our other ways that we hear information, specifically through social media. But even outside of social media, we're able to learn a lot more about things in 2022 or 2017 when this case happened than we were in years prior to that. Meaning that we can go on the internet, we can research stuff ourselves, we can listen to podcasts, we can watch so many different news shows, and we can read all kinds of different articles from all kinds of different publications. Whereas 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, we relied upon kind of our local newspaper. For me, it would be the Washington Post. And local newscasts or national broadcasts, but we didn't have our own ways to gather the information like we do today. So while this movie is well made, I think it could have benefited much more if it were released years from now. It's pretty new in terms of, well, I shouldn't say new, it was released soon after this incident happened. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, like I didn't learn as much about it as I kind of wanted to, and that I learned about from those other movies because they happened so long ago, and I didn't have those other ways to gather that information. So the movie's well done. It didn't affect me like I want to be affected. I didn't feel a sense of connection between the characters, and it kind of fell flat. Now, that's not to say that it's not important, because it's totally important. And this movie does have some good scores. Rotten Tomatoes, it has 87% for critics, 90% for audiences. IMDb, a little bit lower, 7.4 rating based on 3,400 reviews. Letterboxd, a 3.6 out of 5. I gave it a 75%. The only other thing that I wanted to say about it was that Mulligan is fresh off of her Academy Award nomination for Promising Young Woman, an award that she probably should have won, and she has the opportunity to do any movie that she wants. And I'm not going to fault anybody for picking their movies, and this movie is so important. And if she wanted to do this movie because she wanted to have a say in the character that broke this story, I am all for that. I didn't think this character had a whole lot of depth, and I think that Mulligan in 2022 is a top 5 actress, coming off movies such as Promising Young Woman, Suffragette, Drive, Shame. She has an education, which she also won, or not won, but she was nominated for an Oscar for that. She has 2 Oscar nominations. I don't think she'll get a 3rd for this one. But she had the opportunity to go a little bit further in her character development of the different characters that she plays, and this one kind of fell flat. The acting wasn't awesome, and for that reason, gave it a 75.